welcome to Digital Marketing This Week, episode number 21. This is all about Google Analytics and continues our series on Google Analytics. This is part 4, where we're going to start talking about the conversions reports, which is all about goal setting and e-commerce, all sorts of fun stuff. It's all about what results are you getting. It's brought to you by Seriously Simple Marketing over at SeriouslySimpleMarketing.com. My name is Chris Mercer. I am a content developer, an optimization expert, and host, of course, of Digital Marketing This Week. And of course, you can just call me Mercer. Keeps it a lot easier that way. Okay, so let's get back to our focus topic. This is all about Google Analytics. Now, if you are watching us on a pre-recorded version or you're listening to the podcast, you can always go to SeriouslySimpleMarketing.com to join us live. You actually join our notification list there for Digital Marketing This Week. We'll send you out notice of when each session is being recorded live so that you can show up and ask questions. Because after we sort of cover this content, we have this little part we call the Insiders area or the Insiders Club, but basically it's where I sort of step off the virtual stage and then we just start talking about everybody's questions about what happened with the topic. So let's go ahead and jump into it. It's all about your goal for this episode is one idea. Remember, it's always just one idea. Don't get too overwhelmed because it is so easy to do. So if you want to keep Google Analytics simple, anything really, but especially Google Analytics, because the tendency is to get overwhelmed so quickly, is just to take one idea from this particular recording and then take action on that one idea and then repeat the process. So once you've made it sort of yours and you've practiced it, let's say, for example, the idea is how to set up a destination goal, which we'll show you later. But when you go through and you set up that and you practice that, then go back, listen to this again, or listen to the certain part that you're interested in again, and maybe you tackle e-commerce or something like that. But remember, baby steps, one step at a time. Okay, let's talk about Google Analytics. So this is a beginner's guide to Google Analytics. In particular, it's part 4, where we cover what results am I getting. This is all about the results that you need to track. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. First, why should you care? Of course, you're going to discover fun stuff like setting up goals. This is huge. So if you've always wondered what these different types of goals are or how exactly to set those up, we will show you that. You'll also find out which pages are converting, so that you can see that as well. You will also find out how to set up e-commerce reports. Now, this does take a little bit of setup for e-commerce, but I'll show you the basics of it, so at least get yourself started. You also find out what traffic sources can create results and which ones don't. So once you have all this stuff tracking, it really helps the rest of the reports work a little bit better, including traffic, behavior, and your audience reports. And of course, much more. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about this. This is all about conversions, and we're talking about this section right down here. So when you first come into your analytics setup, you'll go to the conversion section, and you're going to see those 4 main areas. Now, they are goals, and then you have e-commerce, multi-channel funnels, and attribution. So let's talk about goals first, because this is by far the best place to start. Goals are the simplest to set up, right? And they get kind of a little more complex as you go down. So goals are the easiest. E-commerce is, moderately easy. Multi-channel funnels get a little more, and then attribution is a little more complicated after that. But I'm going to show you all these different parts, at least to kind of introduce you to everything. But I do want to spend some time on goals because I think it's important that you have those at least set up because they are pretty easy. Now, the very first thing is when you set up a goal, and we are actually going to go live through this. So I wanted to review it with you first so that you can see the different steps. And then from there, once you've kind of gone through this dress rehearsal, I'm going to show it to you live, and then it'll make a little bit more sense of if you're kind of wondering, like, how did he access this? But basically, when you go to your goal setup, you're going to see this, and you see this whole template thing that they give you. We always click on that little custom button down there because the template thing doesn't really do anything, at least not in our opinion. It just labels it, but that's really it. And you can label it yourself. So just click on custom. It'll take you to the goal description then, where you can type in the name for the goal, and then you can choose which type of goal. And you see where the arrow is pointing to this. It's the types of goals. You can set a destination goal, which essentially is whenever somebody visits this URL, or triggers a page view at this URL, we should say. You could do a duration goal, which is a timing goal, how long they spend on a timing-wise on a particular session. And then pages per screen, so how many pages are they viewing during that session? And then an event. An event is something that does require a little bit of coding, so we won't get too much into it here. But if you have set up events, then you can actually trigger a goal based on when those events report into Google Analytics. Now, once you've decided, and I'm using an example here of a destination goal, once you've decided your goal, you just kind of fill out the details. So for a destination goal, you would just say, okay, here's the page I want to trigger a goal on. And as soon as this page loads, right, as soon as somebody sees this page, mark down goal achieved. And that's essentially it. Now you do have those other, the value optional and the funnel optional, and I'll sort of explain those in the live portion of this, which we'll get to in a second, that you can fill those out too. But really it's that destination whenever that triggers. So whenever, if you put in slash, my thank you page, and then that's the URL. Every time somebody loads slash my thank you page, it will always trigger a goal. Okay. So again, value optional and this whole funnel optional part, I'm going to show you those, but basically it's where every time the goal triggers, if you were doing value optional, for example, it would say, if you put in there $10, every time that goal triggers, it would count $10 in essentially kind of what your e-commerce reports are. It would show $10 as a goal value. And then funnel optional is where you can actually set up a sales funnel basically and have Google help you track your sales funnels. Okay, so after that, you would go to verify and then create the goal. So you verify it first just to see if it's set up correctly, and then you go through and you create the goal, and you've got it all set up. After that point, it'll start tracking for you. All right, let's go ahead and do this live. This is my little image of, we're about to go live. We're gonna walk the tightrope here. Okay, so here is Google Analytics. It normally will drop you to the audience view. So we're going to go to conversions and goals. Now within these goals, and actually I'm going to show you the setup of the goals here in a second, but I want to introduce you to the goals reports. So within these goals reports, you have overview, right, which is just kind of an overview of the general goal itself, what's going on and the number of completions you had and where they're completed and all that fun stuff. You've got the goal URLs. This is basically it's sort of the same thing as this, actually. It's the goal completion location. Because remember, the overview report is an overview of these reports right here. So the goal URLs are just the locations of the URLs that are completing goals. The reverse goal path will actually show you the page before somebody filled something else. Let me see if I can show that to you here. Yes, so reverse goal path. So you see here like DMTW survey, and then after that, before that, this is where they completed the goal, but before that, they were on this page. So, and before that, it's just entrance, right? So they came onto this page first. This is the very first page in that session. And we had people that from this page completed the goal. We had also people do it from the home page that had completed the goal. And then other people that came in through the DMTW opt-in form that completed the DMTW goal. So that's what that shows. And then funnel visualization, I don't know that we actually have any of these set up. So this isn't going to show you anything, but this will actually show you, and I'll show you how to set this up, but it basically gives you a funnel overview. We don't use this. We actually use something called PattyTrack, which is amazing. So that's my little hidden tip. Wasn't planning on covering this, but, and I'll put links to this in the show notes too, but it's at pattytrack.com and it connects into your Google Analytics account. And what it will basically do, and you can see free, right? Super cool. What it'll do is it'll create reports like this. And this is basically what we use for our funnel reports. We don't use Google Analytics. We could, but we like using PattyTrack because we can go in there and change a bunch of stuff and it's really easy. And again, it connects right from the API from Google. So it's a very cool. And then there's goal flow. Now goal flow basically tells you which pages people are seeing and from where. So you can say, here's my source of traffic, right? So we do it by traffic source. So the webinar versus direct traffic, Google traffic, Infusionsoft traffic, and then how many are actually completing the goals that we have set up. And you can flip the goals out and say, okay, well, how many completed this, that, or the other thing? So that's what the goal flow report does. And it works just like a regular flow report. So you've seen in other episodes, if you haven't watched this entire series, I definitely ask that you go back and watch these videos because they will go over the goal flow report, or the flow reports, I should say, in greater detail. So but that's basically the overview of goals. Now let's talk about how to set these things up. So I'm going to go to admin, and you're going to go and you're going to choose your view, and then you go to goals. Now an interesting tidbit, goals, actually you can have a max, there's a limit here. You can have a max of 20 goals per view, but you can have 50 different views. So you can see here, we set up a whole bunch of different views. We suggest you do the same. So if you start running out of goals, just set up new views. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna click on goals, and I'm gonna show you what we already have set up here so you can kind of get an idea of how they operate, and then I'll show you quickly how to set up a new one. So we're gonna go into this help desk. We're actually doing a promotion for something we call Help Desk Live. It's something that's just for people who own a product with seriously simple marketing. So whether that's our websites product or the analytics product. And what happens is when they buy these products, they have the opportunity to join Help Desk Live. when we have lots of support. We've got email support, we've got the Facebook group and everything else for the members. But if you need personal one-on-one, well, not so much one-on-one, I shouldn't say that, it's group coaching. And so every week we have a live webinar where anybody who wants to can come on board and we can do a Q&A, we can share screens, and you can work with me on pretty much any topic that you want that's related to your marketing. And a lot of times, obviously, it helps to chat about your analytics and about your conversions and your split testing and different ideas and design and all that sort of stuff. It helps to chat with somebody who does it all the time. And so that's what this product is. But what we do is we set up a goal, right? So we had a little goal that we created and said help desk live. Okay, and then it was a destination goal. So we had it begins with anything that begins with this. Okay. Now, without getting into too much detail, we have actually customized our goal a little bit, or our analytics set up a little bit. So that's why this shows. Normally, it wouldn't show like that. In yours, it'll probably just be like this. And that's what this warning is down here. So where Google says, do /thank you instead of my website and then /thank you. And again, if you have questions over this, just ask if that doesn't make too much sense. But in essence, the long and the short of it is you want to put in here however the goal shows, or whatever the destination is that you want to put in here, you want to put exactly how Google Analytics will see it. So if we go back to our, I'm going to open up as a new tab here. If we go back to our reporting, and I'll wait till that load up. So as we go back to our reporting, I'm going to show you that how Google Analytics report, and then that's how you're going to make it in here. Because if you put it in a different viewpoint, if it doesn't say, in our case, seriouslysimplemarketing.com, if it doesn't say that, then Google won't see it, and so the goal will never trigger. And that's a huge error I see a lot. So let me show you what that looks like here. So I'm going to go to Site Content All Pages, and then we'll just pull up some pages. So see here, so this right at the bottom is where you're looking. You scroll down, so you can see we've got, if my goal, for example, if I want to set up a goal to trigger whenever this page was viewed, this is exactly how it needs to look. This is page, right? This is how Google sees it. It sees it as seriouslysimplemarketing.com. On your site, it might not. It might just see it as your homepage instead of saying your actual website name, again, because we customized it to do that. But yours might not say your actual homepage name. It'll just say /, and that's typically what happens. So then you would just put in /, right? So again, it's more however your goal reports, right? However these pages report, that's exactly the same format you want to use for your destination goals. I hope that made sense. Now we also have the optional opportunity to add value. Just turn it on, then type whatever amount you want in there, and it'll start reporting. We didn't create a funnel here, but we could have. We could have said every time somebody sees, let's say the label's homepage, every time somebody sees seriouslysimplemarketing.com, then we can make it a required step, and then it'll start showing that stuff and tracking that stuff in the funnel reports. It's pretty easy to set these things up, especially if you don't mess too much with these. If you do add these, sometimes the reports don't come through exactly as you want, but normally there is an issue with how you've set it up. So it always generally comes down to user error. But again, using PattyTrack, we don't have to set these things up, and then we just use PattyTrack to set up our tracking of conversions, and it works out a lot better. And again, it's free, so super cool. So once we have this, we can come through, and then you just click verify goal, and it will show you the percentage. Now, actually, we just set up this page, and we just set up the tracking for this. So right now it's saying, hey, well, 0 conversion would happen in the last 7 days, which is true because this page didn't exist. So that it's really kind of tough to verify. But if you have an opt-in that you've had for a while and you're now setting up maybe a thank you page goal for your opt-in, this is a perfect opportunity to verify it, and it should show you something. Let me just show you what that would mean. I'm going to not save those changes, and let's go into our opt-in. So if I click on verify, and this is a page, so out of all the different session pages we've got, so 0.65%, and it's not important what the number necessarily is, this conversion rate, because remember, this is it's comparing against all of your traffic, right? Not a specific traffic source that you've set up. But it's important that there is a number there if it's a page that's already been in existence and that people should have already seen, and so you'll see a number here. But if it's new, then it won't, which would be normal. So I hope that sort of gives you a basic idea of how to do the goals. Now, to set up a new goal, you'll just click where it says new goal. Again, see template, and then custom. We just click on custom. And so I'll just do one just so you can see what it looks like. So let's click on any of these, right? Any of these doesn't really matter because they don't do anything different. All it does is changes. It says template, create an account, but then it says create an account. This is literally all it does. It puts in the name of create an account. That's it. That's why I really, honestly, I don't get why these templates are even there, because they take up an enormous amount of space and they don't do anything. If I click place order, then I hit next step, then it just says template, place an order. And then the only thing it does is it changes the name here. So all it's really doing is like helping you name your goal, which is not that hard of a job. So we always just go to custom, and that way we can type in whatever the name is. So opt-in number 2, if I had one. And let's say this was a destination goal. I would click next step, and then I would put in, seriously simple marketing in my case. And I'm just going to type it quickly just so you can see. So it's seriouslysimplemarketing.com, and thank you dot, and maybe that's just it. Maybe that's just our URL. So, and then I would put in a value, the funnel, I would verify it, and I would create it. And that's pretty much it. That's all there really is to setting up goals with Google Analytics. Again, take some practice. Google some stuff. There's lots of cool videos out there. If you need help, just ask us. Especially if you're looking at this on a blog post, you can go to the show notes, leave questions there. And of course, if you're watching this live, always ask questions, and we'll help you out. All right, so let's go ahead and jump back in. That didn't work out too bad. We got a little live action. It worked out. So let's talk about e-commerce reports now. E-commerce reports, just a little bit more complicated, but I wanted to explain what this is and how this works. So essentially, the only thing that you have to set up, you have to turn it on in Google Analytics first. You have to turn it on, and that way Google Analytics starts listening for the data, right? And then you have to tell Google Analytics on the pages, you have to tell Google Analytics what data to report. So the pages basically say, here's the data that I have, and then Google Analytics listens for that data. And then if the two match, in other words, if there is e-commerce data and Google Analytics is listening for that e-commerce data, then it will report into your e-commerce system. And it looks something like this. So first there's a little piece of code that says, e-commerce, add a transaction, and then it gives you a transaction ID, which will show in your reports. It'll give it an affiliation, which, product line, something like that. It'll tell you the revenue that you made. It'll tell you the shipping and the tax. Now these numbers, all this stuff here, this is all stuff that you determine. You type in this stuff. And if you have a developer or you use certain plugins, these will actually fill themselves out automatically. So you might have a developer with your shopping cart that says, okay, you don't insert order 1, 2, 3, 4, because then the order will always show number 1, 2, ID or the transaction ID from the shopping cart and insert that number here. And a developer can create code that will do this. It's pretty easy to do. Lots of people do it. So you can find someone at Elance or Odesk if you need it. But there are plugins that will actually help with that. Fortunately, plugins to the rescue. So if you're using, here's just a couple. If you're using WooCommerce on WordPress, there is a great WordPress plugin that goes basically directly into WooCommerce that will report e-commerce transactions into Google Analytics. So that's huge. There's also, like we use Infusionsoft, and so we use this plugin called Analytics Connect that actually integrates between Infusionsoft and our pages. So whenever somebody comes to a thank you page, it goes back to Infusionsoft, finds out what the order was, and then reports all the details to Google Analytics, so we know that we made a sale and how much it was. But again, so we don't have to do any coding. We just sort of like plugged, well, I shouldn't say that. We did some coding in that you have to put a tracking tag on your page, but it's not that big a deal. It's just like dropping analytics code on your page. So take a look at these. And then the other thing is Google your shopping cart with the term e-commerce Google Analytics. I do this all the time with clients, just because they use shopping carts, one shopping cart or ultra cart. Also, most of them have Google Analytics integration already. They just need to be set up. So if you're not quite sure how to do that or how to turn it on, just Google it or reach out to your shopping cart support and say, okay, how do I have a transaction report into Google Analytics? There must be some way that you've integrated this because everybody else on the planet has. And again, worst case scenario, if it isn't integrated, then you can have a developer most likely do it for you. So that's pretty much that. I want to show you the Google Analytics reports though. So let's go into our Google. We're going to go back into reporting, and then we're going to jump out of goals and go into e-commerce. So this is the e-commerce, our little report. We just turned this on. So we've got some transactions that are now starting to come through because we're just in the beginning stages of promoting, a lot of our beta products, which is kind of cool. So we've got some help desk sales that have come through. We've got some analytics sales that came through, some website sales, and some that weren't tracking properly. So we got to basically sit there and go, okay, well, it's not working right. There's something broken, or it could have been test purchases. So I'll have to look into that. But you've got this product SKU even. Oh, there you go. See, product SKUs. These all report through based on how we set them up in our case using Infusionsoft, and they're all coming through, which is pretty cool. Product performance will actually tell you again just how many products you sold. So the overview, as always, overview will show you bits and pieces of all these different reports here, but the sales report is really kind of where you get most of the fun stuff. So as I chat here, this is the part that's fun about live, when the page goes, okay, I'm still loading. Okay, here we go. So here we go. Now we've got quantity, so I can see the exact quantity, the number of purchases. So this would be, for an example, if you had an e-commerce site and somebody bought 4 shirts instead of just 1 shirt, like where you do digital products. So it's always going to be one quantity, one unique purchase. But if you were doing an e-commerce site where there's physical goods, and somebody might see they buy, 1 purchase of 4 shirts, and that's where it would show 4 and then 1. So you see stuff like that. Product revenue, again, how much money the products, which will always be 1. So, oh, that's why. So these were issues. We were actually testing refunds, which are not coming through. So that's good to know. So when we were doing our test setup through Infusionsoft, we weren't sure how our refund would come through. So we did a test purchase, and then we did a test refund, and evidently a test refund is not coming through. So we've got to do a little bit of work on that. So that is good to know. Sales performance. So again, this will just kind of give you some basic reporting on what your details are. So this is on dates, right? How much you sold on dates. Transactions is where I was talking about the transaction ID. So this is important because you can go through here and pull the order number for a particular customer, and you would know, okay, well, it was order 210. Let's go take a look at, number 210 and see what the details of the transaction were. You could click in here and you would see it. Oh, Series Symbol websites. That was the order. It bought down sells. They would all be listed in here too. And then time to purchase is interesting because it will actually show you how long somebody took to purchase, which is good for those of you pickles, because it might be something where you come on to a website, you kind of look around, and then you go away for a while, you do a Google search, you come back, and then maybe you join their list, and then you go away, and then a couple days later you get some emails and there's a sale, and so then you buy. And what will happen is, if you have all this stuff set up properly, Google will actually track the time when you initially hit the page and were a new visitor to all those other returning visits you did, and it will say, okay, it took 14 days for this particular person to make a transaction, and it records all this stuff for all the different transactions. So over the course of 6 months or whatever, you can go back to this report and see how long is it taking people to make a decision, and is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Can you shorten that cycle? All sorts of fun stuff that are involved with these reports. Now, if you do not have these set up, like if you click on this, especially in the overview, and it says it doesn't have any here, oh, okay, you need to set up e-commerce. So the way that you do that, you just click on admin, go back into your view. You want to choose the view, and then you click on e-commerce settings and you turn them on. There'll be a little switch here that says on, and like this, it'll say off to begin with. You just turn it on and then you save it. You can also do something called enhanced e-commerce, which I'm not going to get into here, but it is a really, really good idea for e-commerce sites. So where you're doing shopping cart sites, stuff like that. For simple stuff, you don't necessarily have to. We're not right now. We might turn on eventually, but for now, we're keeping it off. Okay, so that talks all about our e-commerce reports. Next up, I'm going to show you multi-channel funnels. So again, multi-channel funnels. Do we talk about our plugins? Those are right in here. And I'm going to cover these kind of quickly because this is the place where people kind of go like, whoa, I'm getting overwhelmed. If you're not already. And remember, if you are, it's perfectly natural. It's absolutely normal. It would be kind of weird if you weren't. It's new. Because it's just that's just how this thing operates. You just do a little bit of piece at a time, one piece at a time. That's how I did it. And then it gets better and better. Okay, so now we're looking at multi-channel funnels. This is the overview. And what this will do is it will tell you, okay, the different traffic channels that you have set up, okay? And channels are different than sources. So you might look at this and be like, oh, well, these are sources of traffic. And they are, but they're really channels. So even though it's called direct, it's just saying in this channel, put all sources of traffic that are direct. In this channel of email, put all sources of traffic that are email. So you can define the different sources of traffic. I could easily, if I wanted to, customize this and say in email, show all sources of traffic that are Facebook and Twitter. Now, I wouldn't want to do that, obviously, but I could. And that's sort of the difference between a channel and then the source and medium. And if the source and medium doesn't make sense yet, go back, rewatch our episode where we talked about on the video where we talked about traffic and traffic tagging, because this is where, again, things that you were doing to track where your visitors are coming from, and now you know what specific ad they came from. That's useful because you can obviously tell the starting point, but it's incredibly useful here because now when they finally purchased, now it's starting to come together, because now with these multi-channel conversion reports, it will actually spell out all the different details, right, of the overlapping audiences in this case. So how much is referral and direct, how much is direct and referrals. So you can kind of get an idea of all the different channels that are working together to get you a transaction. But what really happens is right in here, this top conversion path report. So you can see here, and these will get better and better looking as we get better and better at tagging. But all these directs and nones are probably something that we could have tagged, right? But you can see, so direct, they were a referral, they came from a referral source of traffic, then they came through an email, then they came through paid search, came a couple more times, then a referral traffic, and then they did a conversion. They took a conversion, and this would be, just conversions right now is what we're looking at. So the direct and email, they led to a conversion. So these idea, if you have these tagged properly, and again, this is all UTM tagging, right? So you go back, you tag all of these, and if you see a report that looks like this, I mean, you're getting some steps, which is good, but it doesn't give us the best details. So let's go through and see where we might do a little better. Okay, so these direct nones, so there's webinar live. So here's what's happening. I shouldn't say these aren't, it's not the tagging necessarily that's off, it's my channels. So right now, direct or none, it doesn't know what else to put in here. So because I haven't, it's guessing, but what it really is, and if you want to set these up, I'm not going to go over here just for sake of time, but you can create these here. So this is where it is, and this is how you customize those, and this is something I clearly still need to do. But you'll go back into your source and medium path, and this is pretty helpful. So you go, okay, webinar live. So a couple people came to the webinar and then did a conversion. And since conversion value is none, and the only things that I have set up are like that are goals, then I know that it was goals. It was an opt-in, right? That did it. Otherwise, it would show an actual dollar figure if they bought something, right? So, and these were all mostly webinar stuff. So a lot of people came to webinar, they clicked on the link a few times. They did Facebook PPC, back in directly and typed it on ask.com. They found us on organic search, then they actually found our webinar and then clicked on our webinar and they came back. This one was on mobile Facebook. So they came through mobile Facebook, and it says a referral here. I know it was a link that was shared out or somebody else shared out because we tag our links. And so it was either a link that wasn't tagged for some reason, or it was something that somebody else shared. And I know that it came through referral. So here I know that they came back from an email and then converted. After they joined our webinar, they came in and then they came back. So there's all sorts of cool stuff that you can tell from these different reports. Time lag and path. These are also, again, details on how long it takes somebody to buy and what the average transaction. So of people who took 30 days, here's what the results were. Of people who took 0 days, here's what the results were. And you can kind of get an idea. And then path length, you can get an idea same way. So how many times, how many interactions did it take? And then what the results were. So you can tell, okay, well, it takes 4 or 5 times for people to actually purchase something. And now you need to focus on a longer conversation versus, if it just takes once. So again, multi-channel reports, pretty cool, pretty useful. They are more and more useful when you customize, and I'm gonna bring this back up here. When you customize, oops, let me go to the top conversion path. This section here, these channel groupings. So when you create your own customized channel grouping, then this becomes, and then obviously if you are not tagging, so this, you can see our tags here. So Facebook PPC, that's our tag. Webinar Live, that's our tag. So we do have the tagging happening on most of these. And some of these just are going to be direct none. Some of these people are just typing in, but we do our best to minimize as much as possible and where possible, tag what we can so that we can see this stuff. And because these are easier for us to actually customize it when we set up our channels, which will make this easier to read. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into our next one, and this is the final one for today. This is called attribution, and this is something, again, I'm just going to show you because at this stage, if you don't have any of this set up, it's going to be a little difficult to use this, but just so you know that it's there is sometimes useful for some of this. Same thing with multi-channel funnels. It's useful to know it's there. Is it actually helps you determine a return on your investment. And again, this goes back to our channel groupings, right? So you would actually customize your channel grouping, which is right in here. You can customize the same channel groupings as was in multi-channel funnels. It's the same thing, just two different ways to locate it. And what you can do is you can determine, is it better for me to look at giving the credit for the sale, right? So let's say the sale was, in this case, 21 conversions. Actually, let's use this one. So this paid search shows 4 conversions and it made. So from a value perspective, should paid search be given all, because it was the last click, it was the click right before they purchased? Should paid search be given all the credit? Or what if they came in through email or a Facebook ad initially, right? Or a share or something else, and then eventually paid search brought them back? Shouldn't I give credit to other steps that were involved? Well, that's kind of what you can do with this. So you can come through here and you can say, this last interaction gives the very last step the credit, right? Gives it full credit. First interaction will give the very, very first step full credit. Time decay gives the very first action some credit, and then more and more credit goes as they go through different steps. Now, we don't have a ton of steps in our particular process, but I'm going to click on time decay just so you can kind of see. So with time decay, and I'm going to look at the dollar amounts, but I'm going to look here. So not a huge difference again, because we don't really have a long cycle. But if you've got referral traffic, so if it was referral traffic would get credit for 7 conversions, right? But if we use time decay, it's only getting credit for 6. And then we can see that other, which is probably the webinar in this case, webinar live. Again, only reason it doesn't show that is because we haven't customized this channel groupings. But this is getting a little more credit if we use time decay, right? A little more credit for the sale. And same thing down here for the conversions perspective. So paid search would actually get a little more credit than what it's getting here as last interaction. So it just gives you a different way of looking at your data. And again, this is not going to make a ton of sense unless you have a ton of data in there. We don't. We don't have a ton of data in there, but this is how you read it. And for our clients who fortunately do have a ton of data, this is kind of what we can use to help with return on investment decisions to figure out, okay, do we get rid of Facebook because Facebook isn't creating sales? Well, it might be creating sales, but it might be way early in the process. And this is a report that you can use to help attribute and give credit to that to see, okay, if we did give credit to some Facebook ads way in the beginning, what would that look like? Like how much? And you can select models, and you've got these different styles of how much you can actually do, and you can do your own custom one. So a little more advanced marketing stuff, but this is more than anything useful to know that it's there. And then once you take care of setting up your goals and you've got your e-commerce rocking and you've got lots of traffic and lots of sales, set up your channel reports and that attribution when you got a bunch of data. Because without that, it's going to look like this, and it's going to be kind of what I'm facing. Like I don't really have any useful data, so I don't even worry about attribution right now. I got to get traffic and conversions. That's my thing. So I've got goals set up. I've got my e-commerce tracking. I should set up my multi-channel report now, so I at least have that done. But to be honest, that also retroactive, which is cool. So I can actually go back. I can wait 6 months, come back into multi-channel funnel reports, and I can then enter it, and everything else will sort of retro back, and the report will show the right way. So it's nothing I have to do now. So that's the biggest reason why I haven't. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in back into our presentation here. So that covers attribution. So now it's time for you to think about what your one idea was. Was it setting goals? I hope it was. If you're not setting goals, start there. Please, please, please start there. Don't worry about anything else. Nothing else exists except for you setting those, because that in and of itself is a huge skill. E-commerce would be next after that. So if you don't have that, do e-commerce. And then multi-channel funnels would be next. Again, attribution, if you have a ton of data, awesome, you'll be able to use that pretty quickly. Otherwise, it'll take you some time to have useful data in there where you can analyze some stuff. But at the end of the day, it is action that brings results. So if you just watch this episode and you get data and now it's helpful because you kind of know how to set goals because you saw me do it, but you don't actually try to set goals, then it's like watching me ride a bike. You're not going to know how to ride a bike. You're still going to fall down. So you've got to practice on your own. You've got to make mistakes, and we're here. So if you've got questions, jump into the blog, leave comments, and then obviously those of you who are live watching this, feel free to ask questions. And this particular live episode, again, if you're watching this on a recording or listening on a podcast, go to seriouslysimplemarketing.com. Please take a moment to sign up for our notification list, and you can join the Insiders Club because we're about to jump into some Q&A and chat with everybody to kind of off stage now that the show is coming to an end. Otherwise, again, I thank you for joining Digital Marketing This Week. It has been episode number 21. Our analytics, Google Analytics series. This is part 4, all about what results am I getting? How do you know that? And that's what conversions is all about. Thanks again for joining.